Who's the most popular and enduring folk hero in Western canon? Robinhood was the legendary heroic folk outlaw who was famous for his generosity towards the downtrodden and poor. His antics and hatred for the sheriff have been commemorated several times throughout the years. He's been immortalized in shows, theaters, and cinema, and I mean, come on, how could you ever forget the 1973 classic made by Disney? That movie is a childhood favorite of a lot of people, and today we're going to be talking about a reiteration of the legend of Robin Hood. In the 80s, a lot of people grew up watching this show. Yes, we're talking about Robin of Sherwood, which ran from 1984 to 1986. So string your longbows and get ready for the adventure that is Robin of Sherwood. Let's face off against the Sheriff of Nottingham together and see if justice truly prevails. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Crafting the epic saga of Robin Hood, 1984 to 1986. Robin of Sherwood, inherently an adaptation of Robin Hood's legend, gets overlooked pretty often. It's honestly a disservice to this masterpiece because, oh my god, this series brought so many new things to the table. Let's start off with the fact that this adaptation is such an unexpectedly gritty retelling of the legend. Robin Hood is a folktale character, so there has to be some sort of realism in the story, but just enough to make it believable. The threats that Robin would face off against have to be a proper mix of supernatural and realistic to give the character the true essence of a folktale. This is something that this version of Robin Hood captures perfectly. Richard Carpenter and Paul Knight both had previously worked on projects that were based on historical figures, which were Dick Turpin and Smuggler. So they had a basic idea of how to make a realistic adaptation of legends from the past. Their production and writing style was also rather well received by the fans because of the significant popularity of the two works that I just mentioned. From the outset, this seemed to be a recipe for success. Each of the 26 episodes was shot on film and on location. This decision is what makes the show feel so much more authentic. Shooting was mostly done in northeast and southwest England, with Bristol being the main base of operations. The scenic beauty of the show is just a chef's kiss. You can almost feel yourself being drawn into the setting and feel the way these characters live out their lives. Honestly, you can see why the Brits are so protective about their land because, hell, I would be too if it meant so much great storytelling could come of it. This show is extremely influential in the whole roster of adaptations that followed this one. For example, this was the first time there was an Arabian merry man on Robin's team. Mark Ryan performed as Nasir, a Saracen warrior, which in turn led to Morgan Freeman playing a similar role in the 1991 film Robin Hood, the Prince of Thieves. But that's not the only one. Rob Winston played Will Scarlet in Robin of Sherwood in such an iconic way that after the series, if you look at the performance of Christian Slater in Prince of Thieves in the same role, you'd be able to notice the similarities very clearly. The legacy of this show prevails in its many impressions seen in future works. And I mean, how can I keep talking about this show without bringing up the hero of the series? Let's talk about the main man himself a little. So, in the series, there is not just one Robin Hood, but two. You have the handsome and dreamy Michael Praed playing Robin of Locksley, the Robin Hood we follow in the first two seasons. Then, the mantle of Robin Hood was taken by Robin of Huntingdon, played by the rugged and masculine Jason Connery. Yeah, Sean Connery's son. This idea of having two Robin Hoods in the series basically painted Robin Hood not as an individual, but as an idea. Anyone who's willing to do justice and protect the downtrodden and poor is Robin Hood. Hey, that's the most comforting way you can approach a folktale character. I mean, these folklore heroes, their legends, all of those are here to serve as an ideal. They're people you're supposed to look up to and admire, and that idea is conveyed seamlessly when watching the series unfold. Carpenter truly found the balance for this TV series. There's humor, there's romance, there's action, there's angst, there are social and political conversations, and all of that is presented on a silver platter of solid entertainment that anyone can enjoy. I hold this show very close to my heart, and I'm sure you can see that, but I hope that by the time I'm done explaining this video, you too will understand why I love this show so much. But there's something about this journey that I, even as a big fan, don't enjoy. It's the way the series ended. Originally, there were supposed to be 4 seasons, but if you look it up, you'll see there are only 3. This was because of an unforeseeable circumstance with the production team. See, each of these episodes cost roughly around £500,000 to record. That's an extremely expensive endeavor. The production company, Goldcrest, was responsible for all of this. Goldcrest had previously been known for cinematic hits like Chariots of Fire and Gandhi. Both of these films came out in the early 1980s, in 81 and 82 respectively. However, in 1985 and 86, the movies they produced, like Revolution and Absolute Beginners, weren't hits. This led to Goldcrest losing a lot of money. The lack of funding forced them to step away from the series, leaving us with a rather unfulfilling ending. This act of Goldcrest leaving the team barren was not something that Carpenter had expected. expected. That is why there were a lot of loose ends when the show ended. If Carpenter had known that the third season would have been the last, he would have surely written some of the loose ends out of the series, as he said in later interviews. He and Knight tried several times to do the final season of the show. However, as the two movies Robin Hood and Robin Hood the Prince of Thieves came out, it became clear to Carpenter that producers may not be too excited about the fourth season of Robin of Sherwood. But that doesn't mean that Carpenter left us with nothing. The characters in the show often say nothing's forgotten, and Carpenter really knew that he wouldn't be able to forget Robin of Sherwood. So, after 30 years of the original series, Carpenter brought together the original cast and produced an audio drama called Robin of Sherwood, The Knights of the Apocalypse. This script was for a movie, but Carpenter decided to change it into an audio drama at the last minute. This audio drama was crowdfunded, and who would have guessed it, the funding reached its goal on day one of the project. It was a huge success. The proceeds of this drama went to the British Red Cross and Sherwood Forest Trust, in true Robin Hood fashion. The success of this audio drama led to more audiobooks and audio dramas being produced by the production company called Spiteful Puppet. This happened back in 2016. 3 years after that, in 2019, Chinbeard Books started releasing the novelized versions of these stories that were covered in the audio dramas. So truly, nothing's forgotten. Navigating the thrilling adventures of Robin Hood. Now that we've talked about the production of the show, let's get into the real story of it. The series has a fascinating beginning, if I do say so myself. The story starts off during 1180 AD. The morning is calm and quiet. The light through the blinds isn't too strong, and it's just a comfortable scenario to be in. There's a veil of peace surrounding the villagers, which is rather cozily rustic when you see it for the first time. However, that peace wasn't going to be for long. At first came the telltale noise of galloping horses. Soldiers were coming, Norman soldiers to be precise, and they weren't here for anything good. They were clearly coming because they had some vile plans for the villagers. Swiftly, at a moment's notice, all of the soldiers lit up their torches and set the village ablaze. At the far end of the village, in a tiny cottage, was a boy. He heard the noises of the galloping horses and peeked through the blinds. Seeing the soldiers, he knew things were going to turn out for the worst, so he woke up his father from a deep slumber. His father assessed the situation and decided that the best thing he could do was to prevent the death of his son, so he picked him up and dropped the child off at a miller's residence nearby. With that, the father promised the child he'd be back soon enough, but that was a lie. The father marched into the incoming soldiers and took them far away from the village, preventing them from ever finding his son. He was Aelric, the leader of the rebels. He ran to the stone circle where he was surrounded by the soldiers. There, the soldiers asked him about an arrow that he had in his possession. When he made it clear that he was the guardian of the arrow, the soldiers killed him mercilessly. One of these soldiers was Robert de Reynault. As he was the one who claimed Aelric's life, he moved through the ladder of success far quicker and soon ended up as the Sheriff of Nottingham. Now, we see a time skip of 15 years. The young child of Aelric, named Robin, has grown up quite beautifully under the care of the miller and his wife. He and his foster brother Much were in the forest when they were caught by the soldiers. You see, the soldiers wanted to empty the forest as they wanted to do a hunting session there, but Much and Robin didn't know that and had come to the forest to try to catch a deer for themselves. That's when the soldiers caught them. They asked Robin for his name, to which he identified himself as Robin of Locksley. Now, the soldiers knew that years ago, Locksley was wiped out from history, and nobody from the village was supposed to have survived, so they assumed that Robin was lying. Adding the charge of lying to the charge of being in the forest trying to poach a deer, both the brothers were taken in and brought to Nottingham Castle. There, Robin and Much became quick friends with their fellow captives. They met Will Scarlet, who talked about how his wife was trampled to death by the soldiers. It was no secret to anyone who was present there that Will didn't take his wife's death in a light way. He still very much grieved her demise. Seeing that there were so many people who were the victims of the sheriff and were thrown away in the dungeons instead of getting the justice they deserved, led to Robin's desire to go against the tyrant. His words of wisdom and revolution touched the hearts of the men who were left in the dark, forgotten for so long. Now, with a renewed sense of hope, all the men banded together and decided to attack the guards when they showed up to their cells. They overpowered the guards with ease and ran away. As Robin served as the main distraction from the people, he separated from the group and went a different way. While trying to navigate the castle unnoticed, he ended up accidentally venturing into the room of Lady Marian, the ward of Abbot Hugo, who's the brother of the sheriff. Sir Guy of Gisborne, the one who caught Robin and was chasing after him, assumed that Robin was in Marian's bedroom and knocked on her door. Surprisingly enough, Marian, who was in her bed, refused to sell Robin out. She calmly told Sir Guy Gisborne to go away because she had no idea what he was talking about. This led Robin to realize that Marian wasn't scared of him. The chemistry between these two was palpable as Robin walked towards Marian and leaned to bid her farewell before using the window to escape. Unbeknownst to him, right as he jumps out, Marian goes, "What a man," under her breath. Like, yeah, me too, Marian, me too. The situation at the castle of Nottingham is very tense. The sheriff is upset that all of the prisoners have escaped and he can't stand it. After all, if the king learns about his failure to keep these prisoners, how would that look to his majesty? So he sent Guy and his men after the people. Robin, as he mentioned to Marion in the tense conversation, was hiding in the forest with his people. He grew up in those forests, so he knew exactly where to hide himself. Baron Simon de Bellamy, an evil man who dabbled with a lot of black magic, knew that Robin was in the forest, and if he didn't get to him first, Herne the Hunter, the spirit of the forest, would. Now, the Baron had been on quite a few trips to the Middle East before he returned to England. There, he collected people and put them under his spell to work as his servants. Little John was one of those servants, and he sent him after Robin, who was in the forest. Somehow, Little John was able to track Robin, and sure enough, the two boys got into a fight. Robin won the battle by smacking Little John with a log, effectively knocking him out. When Little John woke up, he was no longer under the control of the Baron. Guy, on the other hand, went to search for Robin. He realized that chances were Robin's parents would know exactly where he was, so he showed up at the miller's house and demanded to know Robin's whereabouts. And as he generally does when he doesn't get fruitful compliance, he kills everyone there in cold blood. Much, who had also escaped with Robin, noticed the terrible act and had a breakdown. He cried his heart out as he ran to his brother, going on and on about how they were your family too. Realizing the cruelty of the sheriff and Guy, Robin swore to himself that he would do whatever it took to avenge the people. He would make sure everyone was free, because this wasn't how England was supposed to be. Back when he was in the dungeons of the castle, Robin had a strange dream where a man with deer antlers was calling out to him. Robin realized that the man was no ordinary human, and if he were to go against all of these people, he would need that man's help. So he decides to pay him a visit. That man was Herne the Hunter. He's like the spirit of the forest, and he's also the one who gave Robin's father, Aelric, the role of the hooded man, the one who fought for justice. Hearing about everything made Robin scared at first, but he returned when he realized that this was his destiny, and he needed to do what was right to save the people. Herne told him about the silver arrow, the thing we saw Aelric hold and guard with his life. This silver arrow was an artifact that was a recognized symbol held with great reverence by Saxons all across England. It was also an occult object. Robin decided that he was going to get it back because he knew that the arrow was with the sheriff. The sheriff knew that the silver arrow was also known as the Herne's arrow, so if Robin was associated with Herne, he'd be coming right after it. So to trap Robin, the sheriff arranges for a competition. Here, the best archer would get the silver arrow as a prize. His guess was right, and Robin and his group of merry men showed up in disguise. As Robin posed as an old man and joined the competition, his men scoped out the entire area of the castle and figured out how they were going to escape once the deed was done. Baron also wanted the silver arrow for himself, so he forced his servant to join the competition on his behalf. Robin won the competition using the longbow that Herne had gifted to him, and sure enough, he got his hands on the silver arrow. But right then, his cover was blown, and Robin and his merry men had to make a hasty escape from the palace to save themselves. With the silver arrow now in his possession, Robin of Locksley accepted the role of the hooded man just like his father before him, and became the Robin Hood we know. The Baron had guessed that Robin had developed a soft spot for Marion, so he decided to use Marion to bait him in. Friar Tuck, who was Marion's friend and companion, heard about the sinister plan, so when he told Marion about it, they decided to go and ask Robin for help. Marion knew that once they reached the forest, they'd be safe from Guy's hands, but right before they could, soldiers attacked Marion and Friar Tuck. They knocked Tuck out cold and kidnapped Marion, taking her to the Bellamy Castle. The Baron knew that Herne was using Robin to balance the scale between good and evil. If Robin slipped up as the hooded man, things would be over for Herne, so his plan was to make Robin kill off Marion. Robin's men found Friar Tuck in the forest, and when he told them about what a tough spot Marion was in, Robin decided he would go and save her himself. He took the silver arrow and went to Castle Bellamy. There, the Baron uses his magic to hypnotize Robin and proceeds to force Robin to stab Marion. But right at the crucial moment, thanks to the silver arrow which Herne gave for protection, Robin is able to break the spell. He stabs the Baron instead and runs off with Marion. The soldiers of the castle chased after Robin, and right when all hope seemed to be lost, the merry men showed up. Robin was shocked but grateful to see his friends, and what followed was a grueling battle. While Robin, Marion, Will, Little John, and Much were able to escape, a lot of the merry men lost their lives in that battle. This forced everyone to reconsider if they wanted to keep going up against the sheriff because the dead bodies would keep piling up if they did. However, Robin said something that touched everyone's heart, including ours. He admitted that while it is a great loss that their friends died, all of those men died free. They may be gone, but their memories surround them in the land, the forest, and everywhere. As long as they were willing to fight for the land, all of their fallen friends would remain with them. The whole legend of Robin Hood is about freedom from oppression, and I have to say, that scene made us tear up just a little bit. With such an entertaining pilot episode, there couldn't be any doubt that this show was going to be incredible, and I think time has pretty much confirmed that. The story of Robin progressed beautifully. Even when they had to kill off Michael Prodd's Robin and introduce Jason Connery's Robin, they did so by making Robin Hood sacrifice himself while saving his friends to make sure that his people were free. With such a banger of a start, the ending had to be something spectacular as well. In the last episode of the series, we see how slimy slimy the Sheriff of Nottingham truly is. You see, King John was at war. The soldiers needed to be fed, so the sheriff ordered Guy to go and loot grain from every farmer. When the sheriff's men, led by Guy, plundered Wickham's grains, Robin Hood got extremely upset. The harvest that year was poor, and if the farmers had to give everything away, they'd have nothing left to eat themselves. However, Guy and his men didn't care, so Robin and his merry men, along with the villagers, decided to go into the castle and steal the grain right back. When King John and his men showed up, seeing the castle ablaze and the grain missing, the sheriff blamed Guy for the mishap. He told the king that Guy was the one who came up with this plan and Guy was the one at fault. When the latter protested, the king had his men arrest him. Before the soldiers of the king could kill Guy, people in wolfskin showed up and saved him. Turns out, while all this was happening, Gulnar, the evil sorcerer, had returned. This time he was back with a vengeance, and he had crafted an enchanted clay doll that looked like Robin, and he needed Guy's help to make his plan a success. Guy, who was more than happy to help Gulnar as long as it meant he could catch Robin to annoy the sheriff in the process, was down for it. So their plans began. Robin knew that things weren't going to go well and sent Marion to Halstead Abbey with the village children, promising to come back to her. At one point, with Guy's help, Gulnar and his henchman Grendel got their hands on Robin. Gulnar used his sorcery and made clay Robin alive. This Robin, as you might have guessed, was completely evil. He fought with Little John and made everyone think that Robin Hood was a bad person. He even went to the village of Wickham and killed a few friends. The reputation of Robin Hood was being tarnished, and this had been Gulnar's plan all along. But evil never prevails, so sure enough, Robin manages to escape from captivity. He frees all the villagers that Grendel had caught and makes Little John realize that he was the real Robin. Once the misunderstanding between the friends was cleared up, a fight between the forces of good and evil ensued. Finally, at Stonehenge, where Aelric was killed, the evil Robin was found dead. What had happened was when the real Robin killed Gulnar, the body of the evil Robin showed up there, for anyone confused. But no one knew that there were two Robins, so Marion, who heard about it, lost her mind in grief. She assumed it was her Robin, who was dead, and understandably so. She was in really bad shape and decided that she would become an apprentice in the Abbey because she had nothing else to live for. But that's when Robin showed back up. Robin had loved her for so long and wanted to marry her, but since she had taken her vows to become a nun, Marion refused to go back. So Robin returned to the village with their children and no bride. Once back in the village, we see Robin bid farewell to Marion the way he bid farewell to everyone, by firing a lit arrow in the water and promising nothing's forgotten. This last episode is honestly kind of a tearjerker, and I have to admit, even my eyes were sweating. I really wanted them to be married, guys. They'd been through so much and yet they couldn't be together. As Richard Carpenter mentioned, he only went with this ending assuming there would be another season. Along with the lack of a happy union between our lovebirds, there's another loose end that we're left with due to this abrupt ending. After Robin of Huntingdon is introduced, we learn that Guy of Gisborne is actually his half-brother. This storyline, along with the marriage, was never explained any further. Dive into the main cast and characters. With such amazing and relatable characters, it's obvious that the actors did an incredible job portraying them. Invoking such emotion and empathy for the characters involved is what truly stands as a testimony to the remarkable performances by the actors. I would first have to mention that Michael Praed and Jason Connery both portrayed Robin Hood in very different ways. They were both extremely well suited for the role, no doubt about that, but the way their Robins vary is also very interesting. When you look at Praed, his Robin is just starting things off. His Robin is more like a youth pastor who wants to give hope and optimism to his listeners. It's very sweet and appreciated, yes, but that's the vibe. Jason Connery, on the other hand, gave Robin of Huntingdon a ruggedness and made him very down to earth, which I love. The fact they were both just two boys living up to an ideal, an inspiration, and portrayed their own takes on the role really made the show precious in my eyes. Judy Trott. Oh my god, her performance as Marion has stolen our hearts. She's as beautiful as the strong and independent Marion of Leaford. She's smart and witty and can outshoot pretty much everyone other than Robin, so that's cool. What we loved the most about her, though, is that you never see her in traditionally masculine clothes. Nowadays, it's really common for a strong female character, someone with strength, to have masculine features like short hair and clothes. But for Marion, that's not the case. She was there in her long dress and her longbow, shooting people down as her auburn hair flowed in the air. She seems like an obvious inspiration for Merida of Brave, and that's honestly amazing. Mark Ryan gives an astounding performance as Nasir, the Palestinian assassin who was captured by the Baron. He was bewitched and kept under his control. However, when Robin of Locksley slays the Baron, Nasir is set free from his hold. He gained respect for Robin and joined his group of merry men, and his performance was so phenomenal that it inspired characters in later films, which we've already mentioned. Standing tall at 5'10", Nasir definitely stole our hearts whenever he showed up on screen. There are obviously other actors who literally ate up their roles, like Peter Llewellyn-Williams, who portrayed the delicate Much, and Phil Rose, who played the lovable and huggable Friar Tuck. Ray Winstone absolutely smashed the role of Will Scarlet, and Clive Mantle played the role of the gentle giant Little John with so much tenderness that it's hard not to root for him throughout his adventures. Despite the ridiculous stag outfit, the sheer commanding screen presence of the legendary John Abineri conveys his importance as Herne the Hunter in the series, as he masterfully portrays the mighty entity in the guise of a human. But there are two people that I am yet to mention. First, Nicholas Grace. This man played the role of the slimy, mean, and scheming Sheriff of Nottingham. He's honestly one of the most hateable characters we've ever come across. He's incredibly greasy and awful and evil every time he shows up on the screen. There's almost nothing redeeming about this character. He's hard to like, but this only means that Nicholas Grace did a splendid job portraying the character. I'm not gonna lie, a part of me was hoping we would see him killed at the hands of Sir Guy of Gisborne, played by the handsome Robert Addy. However, that didn't happen, but oh well, we can dream. The other character who made our skin crawl every time he was on screen has to be Gulnar, played by Richard O'Brien. Gulnar, the evil sorcerer, is bald, pasty, pale, and tall. He looks like a ghostly man made of bone and skin with no muscle. The way his eyes moved, the way his hands worked as he cast spells, absolutely horrifying. He looks so creepy as Gulnar. He gives us an astounding portrayal of this character, but this creepy-ass Voldemort with a nose is going to be haunting my dreams for the next couple days at least, I swear.
Will?
Unraveling the enigmatic appeal of Robinhood. When you first look at the series, you'll realize something really quickly. Unlike the current Hollywood standard of brooding hot 30-year-olds playing teenagers, this show actually cast young people to play young characters. The most spirited people in any society are the young adults, so it makes sense why Praed, who looks like he's in his early 20s, plays the role of Robin Hood. What could be more awe-inspiring than a young boy standing up and saying no to an authoritarian government? But that's not all. Other than the charm of the nature that we see due to on-site shooting and the beauty of the casting crew members, we have to say that the sound design of the show is also truly excellent. Clannad is the one who composed the music for this show, and the sounds that he gives us are truly suited for the aesthetic to the fullest. It has a rustic and Celtic vibe to it, which basically teleports you to the time period. This version of the show mixes the real aspects of society with some supernatural events, giving us the origin of Robin, where the spirit of the forest, Herne the Hunter, asked him to become the Hooded Man. This adds the element of the mantle of a protector, which is passed down to those worthy, much like the figure of Zorro, the legendary masked swordsman. Every member of the cast was chosen for the right reasons, and they fit the whole picture so beautifully. I can't emphasize how much I think Michael Praed's fey-like beauty complements Judy Trott's beauty, which is very reminiscent of the pre-Raphaelite paintings. Overall, the show has a fantastic story, a great cast, and incredible music. It's beautifully shot, has interesting turns of events, and most of all, it's simple and commands your attention. The show draws you in and demands you sit down and think about its concepts and problems before you brush them aside. We're big fans of shows like this, especially in the fantasy genre, so from us, it's a perfect 10 out of 10. Marvelous verdict. Sometimes one might find themselves tired of the Hollywood chic. If you find yourselves wanting a palate cleanser, then might we suggest Robin of Sherwood. This TV show from the 80s is very, very different from the shows that we're used to today, and it'd be a refreshing viewing experience. With a star-studded cast including Jason Connery, Michael Praed, Judy Trott, Mark Ryan, and more, this show is honestly an underrated piece of art. We highly, highly recommend it for anyone who wants an adaptation of Robin Hood that's down to earth, tackles the storytelling with its individual take on realism, didactics, and fantasy elements alike, making for a delightfully balanced experience. That's all for today, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. In the meantime, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.